Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming to our workshop that I do not remember the title of.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I think it's engaging
something.
Engaging the world. I don't know. Engaging in pro-life stuff is what it is.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I think it's more like faith in
action.
action. Look at that.
Yes. You can tell we didn't name it.
We did not.
I think most of you know me. If you don't, my name is Sarah Neeley. You probably would know me from working for CEC for Life, which I did for nearly 12 years. A couple years ago, I actually went full-time with Operation Rescue. I'm the chief operating officer for that organization now. And but still love CEC for Life. Still live in the same town as Father Terry, so we see each other frequently. We still work on stuff together. I just don't get paid for it when I work with him now. And Christian will introduce himself.
Oh, you're right. I have a mic already. My name is Christian McGrew. I am the Director of Outreach for CEC for Life, and CEC for Life is our denomination's pro-life organization. Father Terry founded CEC for Life over 20 years ago. Actually, there he is. Caleb, come here. So Caleb Northwood has a shirt with Father Terry's face on it that he's wearing right now.
That he made himself.
Yeah.
This is not
endorsed. If
you don't
know Father Terry,
it's not endorsed by Father Terry.
No, it's not. There you go. That's what Father Terry looks like. So he says hello.
That's a current photo.
Yes. Maybe not.
Thank you, Caleb. Thank you.
Just for
you just walk back and forth.
But anyway, yeah. So I'm also the president. I founded an organization called Defending Life Alliance of Florida, which we host Florida's annual statewide march. Jimmy is my vice president. Raise your hand, Jimmy. There is Jimmy. And then, now Sarah's going to talk about.
Yeah, so what we wanted to do in this workshop is, one, we wanted to give you guys an idea of what the national landscape looks right now. Everyone here is from different states, so we didn't want to just cover, California or Alabama or Florida. Everybody's from different places. And so we want to kind of go over that, and then we want to go over some of the arguments for what you might be hearing right now based on the national landscape, what's like in the news a lot of misinformation, honestly, a lot of spin from more pro-abortion news sites. So we want to kind of go over that. And then we're going to try to do a little bit of role-playing, if you guys are up for it. Christian and I will start it off. I will be a pro-abort, and Christian will try to convince me to be otherwise. He will fail, because obviously I'm really good at arguing. No. He might win. Who knows? And then we'd like to invite you guys to help us out with that, to see if you want to give it a try. Okay, the national landscape. And I have some handouts here. We can just take one and just pass it down. That's almost word for word what I'm about to tell you, so don't read ahead. And then Christian also has. So you want me to pass this out now?
We can pass it out when I talk about that.
Go ahead and pass that one down. A rule I learned from Father Terry was never give a talk without a handout, which is probably, I don't know, a little old school. I know you guys like everything to be digital, but I do like a good handout. So the fall of Roe. In the summer of 2022, does everybody know what Roe v. Wade is? Yes. Okay. So, the landmark court case from 1973. You don't know. From 1973. So what Roe v. Wade did is it made abortion legal in all 50 states. Okay, so it created a federal protection that states could regulate abortion into the second and third trimester, but what they couldn't do was ban it completely. And so Doe versus Bolton, the Dobbs case that was decided in the summer of 2022, which came out of Mississippi. A fun fact about that is the clinic owner was Diane Dursis in that case. And if you guys follow the work of CEC for Life from years ago, I don't know, you guys were probably little back then, but Diane Dursis owned a really terrible clinic in Birmingham, Alabama. And we shut that clinic down. It was like one of the first things, it was actually one of the first things that I did when I moved to Alabama to work for Father Terry. And I think, people have been working there for years, but there was like this 2-year stint where we just made a lot of progress, got a lot of traction. We ended up closing this clinic down. And sometimes I think that God let me do that. I was just going into full-time pro-life ministry, and it was like almost like a victory lap of like God showing me like, yes, I can shut down clinics like through the people that are willing to show up, basically. So Diane Dursis hates CEC for Life a lot, and she was very just a very honestly a wicked woman. She was really into the occult. And she was very angry, and so we had a lot of conversations with Diane, mostly her yelling at us. But I found it ironic that Diane, she loved abortion. She called it her religion, and she is the case that ended up going to the Supreme Court that overturned Roe v. Wade, which I'm sure she was not thinking would happen when she decided to push her case. But so in 2022, that was over. That case came down, and that overturned Roe v. Wade. And what that did, it didn't make abortion suddenly illegal, which is what you saw in a lot of like the news, a lot of like sort of abortion leaning news that, somehow we'd made it suddenly illegal. All it did was it handed that decision back to the states, which is what it had been before 1973. So before 1973, abortion was legal in some states, and it was illegal in other states because the states got to decide based on how their people voted. If you want to have abortion be illegal, then using democracy, you vote in people that will make it illegal. So that's all it did. But it did create kind of like 50 smaller fights instead of one bigger one. And the pro-abortion side, they had always had this federal protection of Roe v. Wade. So they hadn't done quite the work in the states that the pro-life movement had done. The pro-life movement really, we did everything at a state level because that's where we can make progress. Once we got up to a federal level, we always ran into Roe v. Wade, and we didn't have a very friendly Supreme Court, so we always lost. So we had done a lot of work at the state level. So the pro-abortion side, once Roe v. Wade was overturned, they created this frenzy of panic, trying to say, women were going to be dying in the streets without Roe v. Wade, which obviously wasn't true. But their tactic was to start enshrining abortion in state constitutions. So that's how they were going to win at this state level now. So I don't know if you follow political news, but in the vote last year in November, there were a lot of states that had abortion on the ballot. And so when all that shook out, the other thing was a lot of states like Alabama, they had created what they called trigger laws. So like in Alabama, we had already banned abortion, but we weren't allowed to enforce it because of Roe v. Wade. So it's called a trigger law because as soon as Roe v. Wade was overturned, we can pull the trigger and make that ban go into effect. So when all of that shook out, right now, today, we have 14 states. Well, I say 14, it's 13. Missouri has had some stuff happen recently, so it's gone back and forth. They are one of the states that lost with their amendment. They basically, the pro-abortion amendment to enshrine abortion in the Constitution passed in their state by a very small margin. And so they have been challenging that in court. So throughout the year, Missouri will have abortion and then it won't, and then it will, and then it won't. It goes back and forth. But including Missouri, 14 states that are actually abortion-free. And also, contrary to what you see in headlines, something to know about that if you're talking to someone about abortion or about these state laws is that not one of these state laws allows women to be prosecuted. In fact, every single one of them states that women getting abortion cannot be prosecuted. Okay, so you hear a lot that like women are going to go to jail for having abortions. Now, whether or not women should be prosecuted is a different discussion. But for these laws that are in effect, that is not part of the law. And then another thing is that none of them outlaw miscarriage management, which Christian will talk a little bit about what the difference between that and abortion is. That's something that the pro-abortion side immediately started pushing, was this idea of like, women can't get miscarriage management. Well, that's also untrue. In fact, every single one of these laws, if you read them, defines a miscarriage and an abortion. So it actually sets miscarriage apart to make sure that that care is protected and that doctors aren't getting confused so that they're not in an ER going, no, we can't help you with your miscarriage because we'll get in trouble for doing an abortion. And then in addition, there are 4 states that have heartbeat protection laws, and that's like a 6-week ban. That's basically Georgia, Florida, Iowa, and South Carolina. They all have bans at 6 weeks. So that means It's not a total ban, and some people might say, well, that's not enough, but it is saving a lot of lives. Because women, if you think about, well, I don't know how many here have been pregnant, but usually it's about 4 or 5 weeks before you know that you're pregnant. And then, so that 6-week mark it doesn't leave a lot of time for a woman to seek an abortion, which is good because it saves babies. Then by the end of 2024, so this is when all the ballot initiatives were going on. So now we have 12 states that have actually enshrined abortion in their state constitutions. And the handout I gave you lists all the states. I won't go through all of them for every single category, but you can see which states have enshrined abortion. And almost every single one of those have either enshrined abortion through all 9 months, or they have written a ballot measure that is so vague, it will not be hard for a court to decide it protects abortion through all 9 months. One thing in particular that they did was they redefined viability. So in Roe v. Wade, that's where Roe v. Wade they're basically like, you can you can't stop abortion before viability, but after viability, you're allowed to regulate it. They defined viability as if the baby could survive outside the womb with or without medical help, right? So like obviously a NICU baby is going to need medical assistance to survive. These laws, they created a definition, and it's all the same because all the same people writing it. They created this definition of viability where it says that viability counts as a fetus that can survive outside the womb without extraordinary medical measures. And it does not define what an extraordinary medical measure is. And when you write a law, if you don't define it, that means the courts get to define it. So that means that someone could go to the court and say, well, we think providing oxygen at birth for a baby that can't quite breathe on her own yet, that's an extraordinary medical measure. We think that using a bilirubin light, which they use on a lot of NICU babies because their skin isn't fully formed, that's an extraordinary medical measure. There's no definition. So that's why it's dangerous for pushing the line for how much abortion would be involved, because they're constantly trying to redefine viability. And then, so also something that happened that's national that you may have heard about is that Planned Parenthood recently was denied 1 year of Medicaid funding in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, where the OBBB has all the B's. So they have already filed a lawsuit. And so actually there will be a hearing tomorrow to find out if the judge, they found a really liberal judge, and she created an injunction basically saying like, well, while the litigation for the lawsuit is ongoing, then you have to keep giving Planned Parenthood Medicaid money. And so Planned Parenthood is trying to run out the clock because this was defunded for 1 year starting on the day it went into effect, which was July 4th. So it's only 365 days after that. So if they can keep running down the clock, the more days that they can stop them, that's days that they get. But it doesn't seem that it would be likely they would win if it gets to the Supreme Court, simply because the Supreme Court has already made it very clear that abortion is a states' rights issue. And they also ruled that just recently that states could actually choose to defund Planned Parenthood or abortion providers on their own. So you can't stop a state from doing it. If you can't stop a state from doing it, it seems unlikely they're going to say yes, but you can stop Congress from doing it. So we'll see how that shakes out. A little paperclip there. All right, and then another thing I wanted to hit on was elective late-term abortions. So I don't know how much you guys see on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, but there's always a big thing about how late-term abortions are not happening. And if they do happen, they only happen in a very specific medical emergency. That is not true. That is not true at all. 8 states plus the District of Columbia have no gestational limits, which means they allow abortion through all 9 months of pregnancy. That is on the books. And also those abortions can take place for any reason. There is nothing, an elective late-term abortion is totally legal in those states, as long as they can find a doctor to do it. And then as of 2024, Operation Rescue, one of the things we do every year is this annual survey, where we basically survey every clinic in America and every abortion clinic, and we track trends. So we track like prices and wait times and gestational ages. So at the end of 2024, we'll do another survey later this year. There are actually 112 clinics in the US that provide abortions after 20 weeks gestation. And that is well into the second trimester. And just to give perspective for what that means, Babies can survive in the NICU at 22 weeks gestation now. Okay, so there's not a big difference between 20 weeks and 22 weeks. These are fully formed, alive babies. It would be very hard to make an argument that they weren't people if you saw them. But of course, with abortion, one of their favorite things is to make sure you never see what it actually looks like. Another thing that's a big trend is in 2024, the number of virtual suppliers that we survey nearly tripled from the year before. And 63% of all abortions performed in America now are actually chemical or the abortion pill. That has been mostly due to the FDA constantly rolling back regulations. So right now, especially when COVID hit, they sort of suspended this temporarily that you could do telehealth. So before, if you got an abortion pill regimen, you had to go see a doctor in person. Well, in 2020, they kind of suspended that and they let them do telehealth. And then a little while later, they made that permanent. So there's a lot of virtual online websites where you can just go and fill out a survey and like maybe send them an ID, maybe not. And they will and you don't even have to be pregnant. I mean, you could just go on this website and get like future abortion pills. So they do those abortions. Some of them do them as late as 14 weeks gestation. And some people might argue that maybe 14 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever, when the baby has a heartbeat, that's just, pretty early. So like maybe, I don't know, people are like, well, it's not so bad if it's early. But these babies are people. They're fully formed people made in the image of God. They have a spirit, a soul. And at 6 weeks, they have a heartbeat. 9 weeks, their major organs are forming. They even have little taste buds. And at 11 weeks, fingers and toes are formed. The brain and nervous system are almost completely developed. And so going as late as 14 weeks, there's no doubt this is a person. And of course, in our Christian faith, we believe in the CC that life begins at conception. So we would protect it. Even if she wasn't that big, we would still protect life because we're all made in the image of God, and that starts the moment we're created. So the good thing is that medical abortions can be reversed safely. So I did put this website on here for you guys to have if you know people that sometimes women will take the pills and immediately regret it. And it's called abortionpillreversal.com. Essentially, in medical abortion, the first group of pills you take stops your body from making progesterone, which is what's feeding the baby. So it's starving the baby. The second round that you take is what's going to make your uterus start contracting to start expelling the baby from your body. So if a woman has only taken the first pills and they get to a doctor soon enough, they can give them actually a bigger dose of progesterone and they can actually still save that pregnancy. Again, you'll hear from the pro-abortion side that that's not true, that it's super dangerous, that, women can't do that. But that's just misinformation. It can be very safely done. And the doctor that they put you in touch with is the one who will determine if it's early enough that you could do that. And then just another thing that's good news is there are right now just about 700 abortion clinics in America. And like I said, a growing number of these online suppliers, but that is actually 69% less than there was in 1991. And that's when abortion clinics were kind of at a peak. There were 2,176 clinics across America. So that's 1,400 clinics that aren't around anymore. And that's encouraging. It feels like slow progress, but it is a lot of progress. And also really with Planned Parenthood, I don't know, again, how much you guys read, but Planned Parenthood has been in the news multiple times this year and not for good things. They've been exposed several times by their own employees. They have been exposed for lawsuits. The New York Times did this really big expose on how they were crumbling and like basically imploding. And the New York Times is extremely pro-abortion. And for them to do basically a hit piece on Planned Parenthood was incredible. And it just shows you that Planned Parenthood has always put up this facade as they're like the gold star for abortion clinics, but that's not true. Obviously, they injure women all the time. They kill women. They have terrible business practices. Even their own employees don't believe they're using their money correctly. So it's just this like bloated, like big abortion organization who thinks they should continue to be defunded. And people are really waking up to that. So that's really positive that even pro-abortion journalists are able to point out like how the abortion industry is abusing women and doing medical negligence and responsible for injuring women. And then the other really good thing to know is there are around 3,000 pregnancy resource centers. So you think about 700 abortion clinics, 3,000 pregnancy resource centers in the nation. And those centers offer their services for free. Almost all of them offer them for free or little or no cost. They have resources they can connect women to all the time. So that's just where we are right now. You guys have any questions? We can take a few questions if you want, just about the national landscape or questions about abortion or how they're done or anything. That's a secret. I can't tell you, but I will tell. We have different ways that we contact them. So we have to gather the information. We obviously can't call them like, hi, this is Operation Rescue. We're surveying all the clinics. Could you give me all this information? Because they would hang up on us. But yeah, the thing about abortion clinics is that they want to sell you an abortion, no matter who you are. So we use different undercover tactics. We use some mailings. We used information from their websites. So we just spend it's usually about 2 or 3 weeks that we spend sort of gathering this information to create this snapshot and we do it based on earlier pregnancies. So basically, if I'm a woman who's pregnant today, what would be my experience in trying to get an abortion? What's it going to look like? What's the cost? What's the wait time? How late can I get it? And so we just find ways to get all that information answered. And honestly, if I'm being honest, it gets harder and harder every year. Planned Parenthood especially makes it harder and harder. Sure, but only 2. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, right. A lot of that wasn't true, but it's what was in the news. And so people thought it was true. I can't remember the woman's name, but yes, that was in Georgia. And at first, her family was very resistant and said, we don't think this is what she would have wanted. However, the news and Planned Parenthood tried to blame that on the 6-week ban. It actually didn't have anything to do with abortion. There is a law on the books in many states that says if a woman is pregnant and the baby is viable, that they cannot take her off life support because they're treating 2 patients. And so they have to keep her on life support until the baby can be born, and at least put in the NICU. So everyone tried to say, oh, this is a 6-week ban. It had nothing to do with the ban. It was definitely because of a law that had been on the books for years and is on the books in many other, even pro-abortion states. The other thing is that while her family did at first say that in the news, they later actually named that child Chance, and they said that he was doing well, because that's the thing, he was developing very well. So they spoke to the news. They said he's actually doing really well, and they saw it as a way to remember their daughter. And Chance was born, and he is healthy. And so it was interesting because once the family said, well, we do want this child, the question was, okay, well, now he's wanted. So shouldn't all the pro-aborts be quiet? Because that was the only thing that changed, is that at first they said he wasn't wanted in some way. But she wanted this child. She did not choose an abortion. And so, which to say, right. But she had not sought, there was no evidence that she had sought an abortion or anything like that. So, that got really mixed up in the news, but her family now has that grandchild, and they were happy. They're not giving it up for adoption. They were excited about him being healthy. And I think the family was really scared. That's a really scary situation. And I think once they saw he was developing normally and that he might actually make it, that sort of changed the way they felt about it. But unfortunately that had to play out in the public forum because, pro-aborts are going to pro-abort. Yeah. Yeah. That's how they came to view it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nick? Yeah. Say that again.
When you say that since the fall of Roe
Mhm.
and Alabama's trigger law taking effect against abortion, would you say that it's not your pro-life outreach has gotten easier or maybe encountered more resistance?
Yeah, I wouldn't say, I mean, yes, in some ways, definitely easier because the law is now completely on our side. Also, I would say that our attorney general was not the most helpful previous to Roe. And then all of a sudden, when Roe got overturned, he felt like he had the legal grounding to really put his foot down on stuff, which was good. Wish he would have done it sooner, personally. But what we have to be careful, like immediately in Alabama, there was already a move, even among conservatives, to expand the law, to expand the exceptions. So in Alabama, the exception is for a lethal fetal anomaly or the life of the mother. But the way it's worded and the way it's written out, it's a very difficult exception. Like you have to have like 3 different doctors sign off on it. One of them has to be a psychiatrist. If there's like it's like something like imminent danger to her life or something like that. So like the thing about it is because it is like a state, you can't like stand down. Like it's not like, oh yeah, well, we made abortion illegal, so we don't have to worry about it anymore. Because there's going to be moves constantly from the other side too. And so they were really, I mean, they were trying to expand it just as fast as they could and making all these arguments and convincing some of the legislators that, oh, well, maybe we should. It'll make us look nicer, if we have a few more exceptions. And they tried to say like the law was, that it would strengthen the law, which wasn't true either. I know the guy who wrote the law and he really went to bat. He's a lobbyist. He really went to bat and was like, we have a great law. And Alabama especially does have a great law because one thing Alabama did to its credit was we passed a constitutional amendment a few years before Roe got overturned. So instead of the frenzy that everyone was facing of like, oh my gosh, we have to do something about abortion, we just kind of quietly were like, we're going to go ahead and pass this. We have like a super majority. We put it in a referendum, like 62% of the population voted for putting it. So we have like a personhood amendment in our Constitution that defines a preborn child as a full human person. So any other law that gets passed will have to go up against that in our Constitution. So that's actually really helpful. But again, I mean, we just have to, we have to be careful. I mean, there's still 3 abortion clinics that are open in Alabama, not as abortion clinics. They're just women's clinics or reproductive clinics. And they're all hoping that something changes. They're also hoping that something changes federally, that they'll win back some sort of federal protection that would be able to undo what states have done. So you have to remain vigilant. But in some ways it's easier. Father Scott? I'm going to let Christian do that, and then we will actually go ahead and move on. I don't want to run out of time, so we'll go to the arguments, but you can answer that question.
Yeah, so Amendment 4, Amendment 4 in Florida just happened in November. Well, that's when it ended. It was with the presidential election on the same ballot. Basically, if it would have been, so luckily in Florida, we have a 60% threshold. So if you want to change, like add a amendment, you have to have 60% of people voting yes on it. So basically, Amendment 4 would have legalized abortion through all 9 months until viability with no description for any reason. And then after viability for any like medical reason could be that you're depressed, theoretically, since they didn't give any description of that. So anyway, it would have just made abortion legal through all 9 months in Florida. Luckily, we have the 60% threshold. So we only got like 57 or 58% that voted yes on it, which was really scary because we went from getting a 6-week ban to, we still had that 6-week ban, but we could have been like the most pro-abortion state or one of the most pro-abortion states immediately. After that, luckily it voted no. And then it's back to a 6-week ban. Or it didn't stop. But we actually we had a 15-week ban just like the year before that. And before that, we were at like 20-something weeks. We were kind of middle of the pack for a long time in Florida. But yeah, so that was Amendment 4. There's a lot of similar things around the country. And unfortunately, only like 2 of them went the right way. And we were one of them, luckily. So, okay, I'm going to talk about a few of the topics that might be brought up when you guys are talking to people like out wherever you talk to people about pro-life issues. These are just four of the hot topic issues that we decided to talk about today because just we thought these were four of the ones that are the most popular that people talk about. But we do have a longer training that if you're interested in having us come, it's called Learning to Save Lives. We actually just did one here a few months ago, which is really cool. Yeah. And so one of them is when life begins. So a lot of people will say that, a baby in the womb is not a human life. Well, actually, I think less and less people are saying that now, but that is something that some people say, and that's just not true because size, there's a good thing that you can remember. It's called SLED, S-L-E-D. Size is the first thing, right? So size. Just because one person is bigger than another person, like Shaquille O'Neal is bigger than Caleb Northwood, right? Taller, but he's not more of a person. And so obviously just because that preborn child in the womb is smaller than us, we're not more of a person than them. Level of dependency. So obviously, like even a 2-year-old, if you just leave a 2-year-old here at the church and no one comes for like 3 weeks, he's probably not going to survive because he's dependent on his mother or someone, a caretaker, to care for that child. And then environment, just because a child is in the womb and we can't see them doesn't mean that they're not here. They're there, Actually, there's some pretty cool like new ultrasound technology that makes you, like there's a 3D one, which is really cool. And 40 now, apparently. And then development, same thing. Like a 2-year-old is not as developed as a teenager. That doesn't mean that they're any less of a human. Like, they can't talk, but that they're still human. So that's SLED, size, level, dependency, environment, and development. And that's just one of the topics. Another one is miscarriage, and Sarah mentioned this briefly. A lot of people try to say that miscarriage is abortion, and that now, because some states don't have abortion, you can't get your miscarriage treated. That's just not true. So an abortion is when abortion always kills a human life. That's the goal of an abortion, right? And in a miscarriage, the baby has already passed away. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. They're just doing that to make people think that. They're just saying that as a lie to make people think that they're not going to be able to have their miscarriage treated. Like, you have to treat a miscarriage or else you'll get a lot of health complications. And then, so what's not an abortion? A lot of people also say that like an ectopic pregnancy is an abortion, but that's also not true. So an ectopic pregnancy is when the baby implants in the fallopian tube. And unfortunately, at this point in modern technology, there's no way to save the baby at that point. And so you have to get that treated and you have to remove the baby. But they'll say that that's abortion, but it's not an abortion because the goal is not to kill the child. And all the types of abortions that there are, you have the pill, which starves the baby and then forces you to give birth to the dead baby. You have the first trimester, which is suction. And then the second trimester, they, tear apart the limbs and then crush the skull, then take that out. And then in the third trimester abortion, basically give the baby a heart attack. And then you give birth to the baby, who is old enough to survive outside the womb. But in an ectopic pregnancy treatment, you're just trying to save the mother's life. So it's not an abortion. And a lot of people will say that that's not legal in the states that abortion is not legal, but that's not true. It's also legal to treat an ectopic pregnancy in all of those states where abortion is illegal. And it will never be illegal to do that. Early delivery is another thing that people will like. So the abortion's never medically necessary, right? The ectopic pregnancy treatment is medically necessary because the mother can die, right? Or other complications can happen. But in all of those circumstances, you can, have an early delivery and treat the baby as well. But abortion is when you're intentionally killing that life. And that's two separate things. Saving the mother and intentionally killing a life is two completely separate things. Okay, so the next thing is quality of life. So like some people think that it's better to kill better to have an abortion than to have a baby grow up with a disability or in foster care. or if the mother was raped, right? So these are a lot of things that come up. Well, number one, with like the disability aspect, a lot of times the number one, that the percentage of like false positives on things are really high. But even if that baby has disability, that there's like you still cannot, you should not kill that child, right? Because that's eugenics, and we, no. But unfortunately, in the United States, I believe it's like 67 to 90% of all babies with Down syndrome are aborted. I know, like is it Sweden? Iceland, they're claimed like, oh, we don't have any more Down syndrome, and that's because they like force everyone to abort every baby that has Down syndrome, and so it's it's a lie. They're just killing all of them. They're not actually like they haven't solved any issues. So exactly. So, and it's sick. I mean, imagine you see like people with disabilities are the happiest people. Like there are statistics that people with Down syndrome are like are way happier than people without Down syndrome. But even if I mean, it's just wrong to kill people with disabilities. I mean, everyone agrees with that, right? So we shouldn't abort them. And then with what was the next one? Well, rape and incest. So this is a tough one because a lot of you have probably heard someone saying that well, what about rape and incest? Well, aside from the fact that it's less than 1% of all abortions, it is also wrong because it is a second, so having an abortion after you've been raped is a second invasive abuse to your body, to that woman's body. And the woman deserves better in that circumstance. She's already been abused and raped, right? And then now, if she has an abortion, it's just going to be another invasive abuse of that woman. And also 80% actually of women who have had abortions after rape believe that they made the wrong decision and that they are more hurt now because they had the abortion. So yeah, and it's hard though. I mean, when you're talking to somebody about that, a lot of people like to bring that one up. And I'm like, well, we can talk about it, but also it's like less than 1% of the abortions. But no, it is really hard. It's terrible what we need to punish the father, not that child. The abuser and not the child. And then no, I think there's another one. There's like what? There's one more. Maybe that was all of them. I think so. Yeah. Okay. So abortion can never be kind. You can't abort a child to, or they'll try to say that they'll be better off. Oh, it was foster care. Yeah, that's the one. But no. And again, just because that baby will have to go through hard things doesn't mean that they don't deserve a chance at life. So those are some of the arguments that you might hear. So I think now we're going to do the role playing.
All right. So Christian and I will kind of model this, and then we'll open it up if you guys want to give it a shot. So just to create like a scenario, let's say Christian here is standing outside with a big sign of an aborted baby. And I see him on the street. I'm going to come over and tell you that I hate your sign. It's really awful. I can't believe you'd have that sign out here where people can see it. Children are passing by. What's wrong with you?
Well, actually, it's a very controversial topic within the pro-life movement. But if I'm taking the side that agrees with it, you would say that during the Holocaust, one of the things, and I mean, you look at the pictures when the people saw what was going on during the Holocaust and the pictures of what these people were going through, they changed their hearts. They were like, wow, I didn't actually know what was going on. Now I do.
Well, the Holocaust was real, but that picture isn't real.
It is real.
That's not what a baby looks like when it's aborted. It's just a clump of cells.
It is real. So technically you are a clump of cells.
Christian,
right?
I'm going to need you to try harder. It is real.
No, yeah. So it's not just a clump of cells. This is a real picture of a baby that's been aborted. You and I are just clumps of cells. We're just a lot more cells. So, yeah.
Well, what about if a girl is raped? What about if, she's 13 and she got raped by her dad and now she has to have a baby? You think she should be punished and have to carry a baby at 13?
I don't think that poor girl that was raped should be punished, but she's already been abused by her father, and now the father of that child and her father should be the one who is punished for that situation, not the baby who is has not done anything wrong.
You convinced me. I'm pro-life.
Okay, I don't think.
Okay. Does anybody else want to try? Try to defend your. I'll give you something specific. Anyone give it a try? Come on up. You want to be the pro-abort this time?
Sure.
Okay.
So I'm pro-life, you're pro-choice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're always going to be the pro-lifer. We can't let people up here
All right.
pretend to be pro-abortion.
No, I'm just walking around.
Let's say here.
You invite me to.
Now, let's say you're a coworker.
Yeah.
And he has mentioned that he can't believe that Trump banned abortion in all 50 states. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable, which that's not true. But okay, sorry. I can't believe that Trump just banned all abortion in all 50 states. Ridiculous.
That actually did not happen. That's fake news. Very fake news.
Yeah.
He is responsible for judges.
But shouldn't we have Roe v. Wade still here so that women can have a right to have an abortion?
Well, actually, say, respectfully disagree with that. I think that, abortion, it violates the right to human life. And,
But what if the baby has a disability that they detect beforehand?
well, I mean, if you support the killing of people with disabilities, that's basically eugenics. So,
Well, true. Now I'm pro-life too.
You guys are doing great. All right, who
Okay.
else wants to try?
Somebody want? Oh,
Come on,
Christian. You can be the pro-abort.
I'll handle this one.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
of course. All right, let's try this. Let's try something a little different. I'm a woman who maybe from work, you don't know me that well. But for whatever reason, I've decided to confide in you that I am pregnant and I think I need to have an abortion.
Well, what should you, okay, I'll keep it Sarah. Well, Sarah, first of all, thank you for confiding in me and trusting me with this information and coming to me with this super serious time in your life. I'm sure that there's a lot going on in your head and that there's a lot of emotion that is involved with it. But I have looked at the statistics. I've actually given a speech on this, and abortion is more harmful for the mother than actually carrying through and giving birth to a child.
Well, it's not the pregnancy. I can't. I'm barely holding on. I can't pay my rent. I can't afford a baby, and I don't have anyone to help me raise it. It's going to just be me by myself. I can't do it. Don't help him.
I'm not the father in this scenario. I want to be clear about this.
This would be a very different conversation.
It would be very, very, very different. But, well, I actually know of this amazing organization called the Pregnancy Resource Center. And I know that there is one in San Clemente, actually just 10 minutes from here. And if you go in there and you share that you have a child and you are not prepared to go through with a pregnancy, you're not prepared to take care of the child, they will first of all give you medical advice. They will connect you with medical professionals to make sure that you are safe and cared for. And they will also help you provide for your child for the first few years of life. They will help you get a start to that child so that you don't have to carry this burden on your own. Because ultimately, I fully believe that that child will be a blessing in your life. And there are people here that will help you to get past the difficulties of having a child.
He wins. I'm going to keep the baby.
Nice.
I asked Christian that one because I know that Christian probably would give one thing he did well is he didn't attack me. He didn't tell me that abortion was wrong. He met me where I was at, and instead of trying to convince me not to have the abortion, he offered me resources to get over the obstacle I was already facing. Nick, what he did well is he said, "I respectfully disagree with you." He didn't get upset. He didn't get angry or yell. He just said, "This is what I think, and you can take it or leave it." Very practical, logical approach. How much time do we
You
have?
have 6 minutes.
Okay. Does anyone want to try to be the pro abort? What do you want? Oh, okay. So Plan B is problematic. If you believe abortion begins at, if you believe life begins at conception, edit that out. If you believe life begins at conception, then all Plan B is a really giant dose of birth control that's going to have an abortifacient quality to it. So that means, like, birth control, typically it'll first try to make your mucus so thick that like a sperm couldn't get through. Then if that doesn't work, it'll try to keep you from ovulating so an egg isn't released. But if that doesn't work, it's like backup is to make the wall of your uterus really slippery and thin so that an egg wouldn't implant. And the only thing that's going to try to implant in your uterus is an already fertilized egg that was fertilized in the fallopian tube. So Plan B, you're never going to know, huh?
Yeah.
Right. And with Plan B, you're never going to know which of those three happened. And you're also never going to know if there was like a fertilized egg. So it's problematic in that sense.
So you could have successfully had that birth control, or you could have had an abortion, like really early. You don't know.
You don't know. Right. And that's why it's problematic. And also, I mean, the idea of the Plan B doesn't really respect life at conception. It doesn't acknowledge that would be a human life.
Yeah. I wouldn't. Sorry. Good.
Okay. No, go ahead. Yeah, Christian.
Yeah.
How would you respond as a white male?
I know, right? Yeah. I'm the worst person to respond. What? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. True. I identify as a woman. No, okay.
Yeah.
So what's just how would I respond to someone a pro-choice woman? Mhm. Yeah. Well, I won't have that experience of being pregnant, but I do think that everyone has a right to protect life. And I think that a man has a responsibility to protect life, just like women do. And yeah, I think that's.
Yeah. All right, one more question, and then we're going to have to.
We have like a little thing. Yeah.
Well, implantation takes a few days. So you have your ovary will release the egg will be hanging out in the fallopian tube. If it runs into some sperm, then it can become like a fertilized egg. Then it'll continue down. That takes a few days for it to continue down the fallopian tube and then into the uterus where it will implant. And so with birth control, it's the same thing. It's those three things that it does. It tries to thicken your mucus, prevent you from ovulating, and then it will make your uterine lining really slippery so that if the egg comes down and implants, it won't be able to. Like, it makes it a hostile environment to a fertilized egg. So, what?
Yeah.
Yes.
Correct.
And
And that's gotta
implantation
go
is
through
what
the fallopian
conception
tube
takes
into
like
the
a
uterus.
moment.
Yes.
And also, there's actually a video you can look up. They don't know why this is, but when a sperm hits an egg, there's a little blast of light, and nobody's been able to explain what it is. Yeah. I would say
You don't know, but
I would say that you would never know. You would never know if the abortifacient, because that's called an abortifacient effect, right? So with birth control, you're never going to know. And that's why it's problematic. Like, even in the CEC in our canons, like, what it says is that we do not allow any contraception with an abortifacient specifically. Right. So like a condom is contraception, or Well, you could say some people would think an IUD, but an IUD is problematic as well, because what the IUD is it's like this little, like Y, and it flips around in your uterus and it scrapes the wall. So it would scrape anything that had implanted, it would scrape it away.
Yeah.
And then if it has hormones attached to it, then it's the same thing as birth control. It's still doing that abortifacient thing.
So we only have 1 minute, so we got to do our closing thing.
You do the challenge.
Yes. Okay. So we have a challenge. So we have a challenge for everyone to do 6 liturgies in 6 months. So the Liturgy of the Preborn is a service created by CEC for Life that is like a last rites funeral service for the children, the babies, right? And we usually do it outside an abortion clinic, but you can do it at your church. You can do it anywhere. It doesn't have to be at a clinic if you don't have one close or at all. You can do it in your church even if you do. Anyway, we want all of you guys to go back to your churches and do them. On your sheets, the CEC for Life sheets, the red ones that you got, it has some information on how to do that. There's a website where you can print out the liturgies. If you are really, really interested, then we can send you some. Raise your hand if you're interested in like doing pro-life stuff after this. Okay, come to me after, and I will make sure that you are equipped to do that when you go back
and we can actually share those links in the Discord.
Yes.
And just the idea of the liturgy, the point of that, especially doing it from an abortion clinic, is that we are the church. When you go out there, you are Jesus incarnate on one of the darkest places in your city, one of the most evil places in your city. And if you don't have an abortion clinic in your city, like he said, you could do a candlelight vigil at your church. Yeah. You could, prayer is powerful. And, Bishop Epps this morning talked about like ancient prayers and like liturgical prayers and how powerful they are. And it builds a softness in your heart that God has towards the preborn. It grieves God's heart that babies are aborted. And so we participate in that grief and we take action by praying. It's easy to do. It's not a hard thing to do, the liturgy.
And we want to get more people involved in CEC for Life and young people. And so just doing the liturgy is a great way to start. And so we really hope that you guys will do that. And please reach out to us. I have my email and phone number and Father Terry's email on all those sheets. So remember to take those home and we'll talk about it soon.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.